You may be surprised, okay, appalled, to learn of the American government's hypocrisy when it comes to individual firearms ownership, but you shouldn't be any more surprised to hear that our growing global government, that is right, the UN, is also actively working to strip you of your rights allegedly protected by the Second Amendment. This is happening under the guise of the Small Arms Treaty, which is based on the premise of fighting terrorism. Another reason conservatives should be actively debunking the overhyped propaganda-fueled threat of terrorism, because it's another excuse for the government to confiscate guns. But on the other side of this fight is the local sheriff, or at least one brave former county sheriff who stood up to President Clinton on the issue. And I'm honored to be joined tonight by none other than Sheriff Richard Mack, author of The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, which explains why the American county sheriff is the supreme authority in a county and how important that is to the idea of localism and preserving individual rights. Sheriff Mack, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. It's indeed a pleasure, and it's even more of a pleasure to call you friend.
Hoorah. All right. Now, let me ask you, go to the premise of your book here. If the county sheriff is the ultimate law enforcement authority, how does that relate to preserving gun rights, and what does that say about, present company excluded, most American sheriffs failing at their job to stand up to the feds and defend citizens in their respective counties?
Well, it's the bottom line. It's the last line in the sand. The sheriff is the ultimate law enforcement authority in his county, and let's just suffice it to say that to make that argument very short because of time, he is the only elected by, for, and of the people law enforcement official in the United States and in his county. Therefore, he reigns supreme because he reports to the supreme authority. He is not a bureaucrat. He answers directly to the people, the ultimate power source in American government. And so that's why the sheriff is the ultimate authority. And he promised them, when he took his job, that he would uphold and defend, protect and preserve, and obey the United States Constitution. Therefore, he is bound by that oath to protect the citizens' constitutional rights, God-given rights. And when you read the Bill of Rights, one of the untouchables, as far as government goes, is the right to keep and bear arms. So if anyone comes into your sheriff's county and they try to diminish or infringe the right of the people to keep and bear arms, the sheriff is obligated, he is duty-bound to stand against that. So when, like during the FEMA fiasco of the Katrina hurricane in New Orleans, when they started confiscating guns and going door to door to confiscate guns, when people need them the most, the sheriff would have to stand against that and interpose himself on the behalf of the people and their rights and their freedoms.
So now, I know this might sound like an outlandish statement then to most people, but the logical conclusion of what you just said is that most sheriffs in America are derelict in their duty.
Yes, they are, and that's the reason that I have started the CSPOA, the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officer Association. That's why I'm reaching out to all 3,100 sheriffs in the country. I believe a lot of them are good people. They just haven't got the little push they need to go over the edge to make sure that they all become constitutional sheriffs. But a lot of sheriffs are waking up. Tuesday, I'll be in Grant County, Oregon, and talking with the sheriff of Josephine County, Oregon. Sheriff Gilbertson and Sheriff Palmer both are going to be meeting me there. They have been standing against the federal government, the U.S. Forest Service in particular. And there's lots of sheriffs now doing this across the country. Sheriff DeMayo in Nye County, Nevada. There's a couple of sheriffs in Utah doing it. Even in Maine, the sheriff there, Donnie Smith, is doing a good job. And there's a lot of sheriffs now that are seeing the truth about this, and they really are grasping the principle that's involved that we're talking about here. Well, local autonomy, local control.
Absolutely. Well, it's certainly encouraging to hear that, but there's still the overriding mentality of law enforcement in America is pretty anti-gun. And a couple of stats here. According to Gun Owners of America, law-abiding citizens use their guns in self-defense about 2.5 million times per year, and kill and shoot 2.5 times as many criminals as police officers, even though percentage-wise they kill less of the people that they draw down on. So why is it that more law enforcement officers as a whole aren't champions of gun rights if they are clearly in the best interest of public safety?
Well, you know, the mentality of law enforcement nationwide really worries me, and I think we've got to address some of these key issues in the police academies, and where really the result is we're getting far too militarized with our local law enforcement agencies. We've seen that way too much recently, and Gun Owners of America really calls it straight, and I really appreciate the information they're putting out. But the problem is that law enforcement officers in this country are not trained to keep their oath of office. I find it very alarming. It's one of the sad circumstances that is actually part of the politically correct destruction that's going on in our country. Can you imagine a peace officer who swears an oath and then doesn't keep it?
I seem to run into them here in D.C. all the time. Why would I be surprised?
You wouldn't be surprised because you're on the front lines, and this has to be something that peace officers in this country have the integrity to address.
Absolutely, outstanding. Keep up the good work yourself. You're on the front lines making sure that sheriffs in America respect the Constitution and uphold their oath. Sheriff Mack, thank you very much.
See you soon, Adam. Thanks.
Outstanding. Hope so. All right, that was Sheriff Richard Mack, author of The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, and a great champion of real law enforcement.